crafty peeps, I hope you are all doing well. I'm going to be creating a scrapbook today in a Slimline profile, and I'm also going to be using papers from my stash as well as the Honey Girls printable from my shop. So this is going to have loads of flip pages and tip-ins so that I can incorporate all those sweet images and all these pretty pattern paper layers. So if that sounds good to you, then stick around and we will make this together. I'm starting the base with a piece of 65 pound weight cardstock. The measurement for this is 9 inches high by 8 3/4 of an inch wide. I've scored it at 4 and 4 3/4, so that's going to give us our Slimline profile. Now, before I add any additional pages, I do want to cover that spine, and it's just so much easier when you can get this flat down onto your work surface. So I'm picking a combination of solid cardstock and the pattern paper. Now I have my cardstock cut to be 8 7/8 by 5/8. And the pattern paper is 8 3/4 by 1/2 inch. And I'm just going to center that on there. This is going to coordinate with the patterns that I've chosen for the front and the back cover. Not only is this going to add a nice finished detail, but it does add some additional sturdiness and thickness to this spine. So I'm glad we have that done now before all the other additional layers are added. So we want to include some flips so that we can increase the inside space that we have for pictures and journaling. And so the first thing I want to do is bring in a piece here. This is also 65 pound weight cardstock, and the measurement is 9 high by 8 1/4. It's scored at 4 and 4 1/4. So now we're going to have 1/4 of an inch portions on this, and I do want to have my 2 glue combo just so these are well secured. I have 2 of them and I want them to open outward, so I'm going to very carefully position this so that my cut line falls right into that score mark so that I know this will close properly. And I'll just be careful to keep it straight and even going across the side and the bottom. Now we have an additional piece cut just with the same measurements, and I'm going to add it to this side and it will flip open toward the outside again. Okay, so now I have that in place as well, and I found it easier just to flip that around so that I could bring that cut end closer to me so that I can get it square and even. I've got a couple of additional parts that I want to add to this, and because these flip out this way, I want these portions to flip out this way, and so I'm going to be adding these 9 inches high by 8 inches wide and scored at 4. And these will be some additional flips that will open up on the inside. I always feel like the hardest part of these are just keeping your hands out of the glue. Okay, so now we have our Slimline folio cover that will open this way and then also this way. So now what I want to do is begin to add my pattern paper, and I do also want to include those images as tip-ins throughout the layers as I'm working along. So I'll just show you here that I have my cardstock cut to be 3 3/8 of an inch high by 3 inches wide and scored at 2 3/8, and then I have my image cut to be 3 1/4 by 2 1/4, and I'm going to add them so that I can have these open outward as well. And I'll just add this to the cardstock, and you can see I have already finished the inside with some additional pattern paper. This is not very contrasting for a pattern, so you can write directly on that if you wanted to include some journaling. But now what I want to do is take my pattern paper pages and cardstock. I have that cardstock cut to be 8 7/8 by 3 7/8, and the pattern paper is 8 3/4 by 3 3/4. And then I'll just add my tip in with my image here, and I'm just going to alternate kind of a top or bottom and then a right and left for each set of pages. I added some double-sided adhesive to the back of my page, so I'm just kind of attaching that around the back so that I can capture that tail in between. Now this one is going to be on the left hand side. Remember, I want my image to open outward, and I'll just get a very nice border of white from the base, and then the colorful cardstock as well. I'll do the same for this side. Remember, I wanted to alternate these, so for this image I'm going to adhere it slightly lower just for an additional bit of interest in detail. Same process, I'm just going to capture that tail right along the back side, and then I think it would be easier to keep everything straight and even if I have this longer side closer to me. So I can just position that in the center and got my nice borders and press that down well so I get a good contact. Now you can see how I've got one on either side in alternating top and bottom, and then that will open and then that will open. So let's go ahead and continue to work in these pages with the pattern paper and cardstock and the additional images. Now I was able to utilize that whole sheet. It had 9 images on that one printable. I've got 8 tip-ins on the inside, and then one of the images I'm going to utilize for the focal image on the cover. So I got a good use out of that printable, and I'm also going to get a lot of good use out of my scraps. And this was paper from my stash, and so I feel like I've got a lot of good use out of these supplies. So I'm just going to continue to alternate those as I work along, and I'll show you that process, but I'll speed it up a little and I'll give you a little music, and then I will join you again when we have this portion done. Okay, so now you can see when we open this, we'll get those flips for the pages and the tip-ins for the images, and we've got 4 for this section, so you can see there is plenty of room to add all your pictures and journaling. And then we've got the last set of pages, and these all coordinate because they all show at the same time. So this is going to be the inside, and you can imagine how nice and thick and sturdy this is getting with all of those layers added. So see if it will focus that close, but that is a lot of volume and sturdiness added. So remember, we already covered our spine, and I did add an additional bit of my tape here, the double-sided tape, just to tack my ribbon trim into place. And so this is just a beautiful little black and white check ribbon, and I have enough for this to wrap around so that I can tie this securely, and then a very generous sized bow can be tied for the end. So I'm just going to get that positioned, and then this will hold it in place, and I can sandwich that trim in between the layers of the cover and the additional cardstock and pattern paper. So let's just go ahead and do the back first. I've got this beautiful diagonal plaid here. I think this coordinates perfectly with those images, and I do have those sweet girls images with some additional backgrounds. So if you don't find this will match the pattern papers that you have in your stash, there might be a set that will work for one that you have. So let's go ahead and cover the front. Now I've just got a bit of a layering pattern for this. It was part of the offcuts from the additional page, and you can always use those as layering as you're working along so that you know everything will coordinate perfectly. So I'm just getting that pressed into place there. And now I've got my image for the cover. I would normally add a bit of a doily, but I don't have a lot of room widthwise for this. So I'm just gonna go straight in with that cute image. That little girl has her details accented with some stickles, just so that all of those pretty little details pop. I've got a border of black cardstock, and I did pop that up on spacers so that I can build some dimension for our cover here. I just want to get that added to the front. Because I have more on the top and the bottom, I can add some additional details there. I've got my flower arrangements here. These are magnolias from Really Reasonable Ribbon, as well as more of that pretty plaid ribbon. Die cut foliage here, netting and loopy twine bows. And I have two arrangements for this because I have the additional height for my cover. So I'm going to add these with some hot glue. You can see I did switch out the center of those magnolias for something that I thought would coordinate a little bit better. And I did actually take off the top layer of those flowers, and then I folded it in half and added it underneath. So this is sort of a layering effect, but I just used one flower and got the look of two for that. So that's a good value. I'm gonna go ahead and tie this now in a pretty little bow on the side. I think this is a great way to keep all of those insides secure and nice in there. Just going to cut off the excess ribbon now. I have a couple of little bitty charms here, and these are just little bees, which I thought would coordinate perfectly with my honey girl theme. So I'll add those with a little bit of hot glue. Just set those strings into it. Remove the excess. And cover those cut strings with a button. And then I'll also incorporate a couple of pretty little sequins here to balance those charms, and I'll add those with my tombow. So that's going to be all for today. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Remember, you can check in the description for links. And as always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day. And I thank you so much for watching. Bye.